you know, so thankfully I don't have to try to define the Anthropocene curriculum, and I think Carlina did a really effective job of introducing what it is. The project that I'm going to be talking about today is precisely one of these projects that has been inspired by the Anthropocene curriculum and grows out of the sort of network of collaborators and researchers and artists that were catalyzed in that work. And I hope my comments might provide a few ideas, references, or points of comparison for the Anthropocene Lab here at UIC. And I don't have a sense of everybody that's in virtual space right now, but there are a lot of people that have contributed to the brainstorming and conceptualization of the project I'm about to present today. Beate Geisler, Michael Swiertz, Sarah Lewison, and a lot of other people, Tamara, and a whole bunch of people that are online that I don't have the capacity to see who are present. But the working title for this project, for this Mellon Foundation funded initiative is, as Carlina was mentioning, the Mississippi River Open School for Kinship and Social Reciprocities, which I'll be referring to simply as the Open School. It's an educational and research initiative that spans the entirety of the Mississippi River through the formation of 5, what we're referring to now as river hubs, from its headwaters to the Gulf. That really is in conversation with this earlier project that was activated through the creation of 5 field stations. The northernmost hub is located at the site of a former oil pipeline resistance camp, the Water Protector Welcome Center, coordinated in part by the indigenous-led organization Honor the Earth. And we are supporting the camp's efforts to reconstitute as a public arts and educational center that foregrounds indigenous knowledge and cultural practices. The southernmost hub is in and around New Orleans and comprises a group of cultural organizers, educators, and artists who work in and around the Center for the Gulf South at Tulane University. Our partners have been working on issues related to the river for years, and Mississippi and Anthropocene River provided us with an opportunity to connect and coordinate on an expansive multi-year project on issues spanning the headwaters to the Gulf. This opened up the possibility of continuing these collaborations, as Carlina was mentioning, and it's being sort of realized in part by this Open School project. In contrast to Mississippi and Anthropocene River, with its focus on the Anthropocene, the Open School will examine issues at the intersection of race, resource extraction, and the environment, especially climate change. These two sets of issues, the Anthropocene and race, are obviously deeply interconnected. And as we tried to foreground in our work on Mississippi and Anthropocene River, race is critical to any understanding of the Anthropocene in the US setting, if not also planetarily. And the conceptual focus for this Open School emerged to situate this idea further in research and activities. The remainder of my short presentation today will concern reasons for its working title, Mississippi River Open School for Kinship and Social Reciprocities, and 3 additional themes, crossing, repairing, and welcoming, that have emerged in our collective ideation for the project during an initial conference, which we're calling Confluences. So this project has only been going on for the last few months, like three months or so. These themes, crossing, welcoming, and repairing, each speaks to experimentation in different senses in education, curriculum, and sociality. And our work together will continue to be re-examined and refined over the next 2 years in additional collaborations, including confluences. Before moving on, I wanted to add that the ideas that I'm about to present on were developed during this conference, but a smaller group has been refining and writing about these themes in order to present them to a larger group. The second step hasn't yet happened yet, so the ideas I'm about to present on are very much in the kind of ideation stage, brainstorming stage, and are tentative, but I'm going to present them as a sort of orientation for the project in its entirety. A shout out to Michelle Garvey, Jeremy Meckler, Oliver San, Aaron Chang, and Shanna Griffin, who are a part of this working group trying to formulate these themes that will help inform our approach to this Open School. And finally, Beate and Oliver have been really instrumental to helping us conceptualize this project. The first thing I want to talk about is the idea of the Open School itself in order to characterize our educational work. We've been struck by an idea that our activities comprise an experiment and the formation of a collaborative school spanning the river's headwaters to the Gulf. The notion of an open school offers a singular way to talk about our spatially dispersed and multimodal activities along the river. School here obviously isn't meant in the conventional sense of offering credits or seeking formal accreditation, but that our group consists of educators, informal and formal educators, who've been creating public opportunities to learn from and with the river. In this sense, one way in which we mean open is the spatial organization of our activities, which spans the roughly 2,300 miles from the headwaters down to the Gulf. We aspire to form and grow a distributed network of educators, activists, artists, researchers, and others who connect these distances. A second way in which we mean open is as a critical assessment of the university's position relative to the communities, especially frontline ones with which we work. Too often, community engagement at universities operate within a troubling spatial model of their relationship. We send students off to work with communities in order to learn about their experiences and activities, and then students return back to campus and find refuge in the comforts and safety of campus life. This contributes to a real and imagined separation from the communities with which they work, reifying distinction between universities as being somewhat inside and communities that exist on the outside. As is evidenced in researching a planetary condition like the Anthropocene, the problems that frontline communities face are not particular to their condition, but exist everywhere. And universities themselves can contribute to this problem, to these conditions, with a role in reproducing class separation that structures social and economic inequalities. In reflecting on this and other shortcomings, deconstructive critics have called for an abolition of the university in its current form, to invert it so as to offer educational resources to the many on its outside that are excluded from its benefits. This sees the problem in solely two dimensions: inside or outside, refuge or frontline, professional or unprofessional, university or undercommons. Short of abolition, can we think of ways to improve upon the university so as to transform it into a pedagogical environment that's open to frontline communities that possess this invaluable knowledge from which we wish to learn? How can universities support frontline communities so that they continue their necessary work? And how may we create opportunities for students, broadly construed, not just university students, but the public as well, to responsibly learn from and with communities without overburdening them? With open, we propose an alternative spatial model for reorienting the way in which we think about the relationship between universities and frontline communities. If we evert the university, that is, turn it inside out, the university can become a platform for public engagement. What was exclusive to the inside can now be offered to the outside. Resources that are accessible to students on campuses, whether that's funding, meeting spaces, expertise, training, libraries, et cetera, can be made available to communities as well. This poses a variegated way to respond with novel strategies for engagement. The university can become a welcoming center, an idea I return to shortly, for social, material, and intellectual exchanges. This learning can happen equally on university campuses and the front porches of communities as well. This is another way in which we made open school here. A second mobilizing concept in this project is crossing. It foregrounds a curricular way to think about the intersections of race, environment, and resource extraction along the river and their varying configurations of power and ways to engage them. Partners with the St. Louis River Hub, and if Lynn Kiemüller or Jennifer Colton are online, here's a shout out to them. Partners with the St. Louis River Hub proposed the term while reflecting on how, quote unquote, crossing the Mississippi River in their part of the watershed has freighted meaning akin to crossing to the wrong side of the tracks. They plan to reckon with the history of this sentiment and issue challenge to the structures and forms of power and domination issuing from race, class, and political differences that contribute to this separation. When thinking about rivers, especially the Mississippi River, fording or crossing is a provocative idea. In the history of the US, the river has been maintained as a boundary, a border, a riparian separation wall marking zones of exclusion and extraction. A colonial history of the river concerns its construction and management as a natural barrier. It was the western border of the US before the Louisiana Purchase, and it's been utilized, as Carlina was talking about, as a canal for intensive resource extraction from native lands that continue to spur expansion into these territories. The river speaks to the organization of state power and capital and continues to be strategic to the management of populations and ecosystems. The St. Louis River Hub is steeped in this history and will engage with it through the crafting of activities that cross the river as forms of public engagement and education that strive to reconnect and restore its sides. Crossing, in this sense, suggests a kind of trespass. To cross over to the other side is to challenge and resist the management of space that keeps one in one's place on either side of the river. The idea of crossing as trespass strongly resonated with other river hubs as well, in particular, the Water Protector Welcome Center, which is located on the river in the headwaters region of the Mississippi. From 2020 to 2021, the Welcome Center was the site of fierce resistance to the Enbridge Line 3 oil pipeline, which crosses the Mississippi River 2 times. Each location where the pipeline crossed, at a place called Coffee Pot Landing and the Water Protector Welcome Center itself, became sites of some of the longest and sustained mobilizations of resistance to the pipeline. So ambivalently, crossing characterizes both the placement, ambivalently, crossing characterizes the placement of the pipeline itself. It cuts across territorial borders, moves between public and private land, digs under fragile ecosystems. But crossing, in this sense of trespass, also calls to mind direct actions against the construction of the pipeline. Over 1,000 protesters were arrested during Line 3 protests, many for trespass, and one of the largest collective refusals in the US of the historical theft of indigenous land and its ongoing expropriation as corporate property. This crossing both refers to the management of space and to forms of resistance to it. This ambivalence is a site of curricular experimentation, for it suggests the need for innovative forms of research, action, and education that engage with the Anthropocene in ways that are consistent with what Carlina was introducing to us. Finally, it's really important to add here as a lead-in to Tom Turnbull's talk next about interdisciplinarity. Crossing has additional significance to our work as a crossing of the boundaries of academic disciplines, for example. Our work with the Anthropocene and continuing with the Open School cuts across disciplines from the arts, sciences, humanities in order to model new forms of knowledge, production, and engagement. Crossing as a kind of intellectual trespass. I'll leave this idea here and hopefully it'll resonate with some of what Tom has to speak to us later. In order to build an open school, a learning community that spans the 2,300 miles from the river's headwaters to the Gulf, how do we share gifts of knowledge and companionship between river hubs? With the term welcoming, we're exploring the idea that river hubs are sites of experimentation and social reciprocities and kinship that model the reparative work we strive for in our actions and activities. We take inspiration from notions of hospitality in order to envision river hubs as places of welcome. To welcome establishes a relationship that aspirationally describes our collaborations up and down the river. It's intended to be inclusive, not just for social relationships, but ones between humans, non-humans, and the earth itself. To welcome is to be open to the experience of others, expressed in a sharing of histories, connections, stories, relationships, knowledge, and cultural practices, and more. To welcome is a gift of hospitality that we offer to guests who visit our river hubs. This isn't simply unidirectional, as guests reciprocate this welcome by offering the gift of their presence and contributions in return. And in this definition of welcome, we draw on traditional notions of hospitality that characterize the relationship between a guest and a host as reciprocal. Under ideal circumstances, this reciprocity forms a bond in which each recognizes the other as kin. Marcel Mauss goes so far as to characterize this mutual bond as the basis for social solidarity, what we might even call today mutual aid. The guest and the host both receive far more from this welcome than is visibly exchanged. Environmental writers, particularly native ones, have applied this idea of the gift relationship to the one that humans have with the earth itself, plants, animals, insects, ecosystems, and the river shower us with gifts without which it would not be possible to survive, if not thrive. How do we as humans reciprocate this gift is an ethical question about the bond and inspires our efforts to engage in mutually beneficial relationships and exchanges with river partners and to extend it to the river and all of its inhabitants. The last area of experimentation that I'd like to talk about is repair. Because I'm short on time and running close to the end of my talk, I'm not going to spend too much time talking about the specifics of our use of the term, but it's fairly consistent with environmental and social justice writings and activism around the topic. Put simply, repairing insists on the importance of mending damaged ecologies, relationships, and narratives. In the context of the Mississippi River watershed, this requires a recognition of the harms committed to the river and its inhabitants and taking responsibility for them. Repair can be enacted through various actions, including reparations, ecological restoration, and restorative justice. To underscore again an idea that was introduced earlier, all of these themes, opening, crossing, welcoming, and now repair, are intended as actions. To repair is especially important in this regard. Each of these themes can be thought of as a reparative action. With open, we foreground the work of our frontline partners and co-develop activities that are responsive to their needs. With welcoming, we repair relationships by drawing on ideas of kinship and social reciprocity. With crossing, we mend historical divisions and inequalities that condition our experience of the watershed. The theme of repair offers a conclusion to my talk as it brings us back to the context I started with. The Mississippi River Open School for Kinship and Social Reciprocities are experimentations in education, curriculum, and sociality. How can we repair the university? In general, universities can do a lot more to respond to its historical role in forms of dispossession, violence, and inequality. Such reparative work needs to simultaneously address deepening social and economic inequalities with the rising costs of education, among other issues. The themes that I've discussed today, openness, crossing, and welcoming, are ideas for repairing the university so as to initiate restorative relations with river communities. An open school spanning the headwaters to the Gulf is a reimagining of the location of education within this expansive terrain. Rather than cloistered, enclosed universities, an open school consists of distributed river hubs as the sites for immersion and experimentation for crossing the formal organization of university education, research, and public engagement. An open school is a welcoming place for the emergence of learning environments through kinship and social reciprocities. Our work with the Anthropocene curriculum has been invaluable in shaping the practices that I've been describing today. I'm excited to brainstorm ways that some of these ideas might be productive for the planning of the Anthropocene Lab as well. Thanks so much.